Hello and welcome back to another week of Colorado Politicking. I'm Pat Poblete, a legislative reporter at Colorado Politics. And with this legislative session really coming to its conclusion, we are again going to focus on the Capitol today. But instead of last week's episode where we just focused on the legislature, we're going to tie in the governor as well here. And we're going to start there on the first floor and bring in the Gazette's senior investigative reporter, Chris Osher. Now, Chris, you had a big story just drop about a couple coronavirus testing initiatives that Governor Jared Polis was backing, or at least his administration was. Tell us a little bit about that story.
So the first one dealt with a program to provide coronavirus surveillance in nursing homes. And CDPHE ended up going with a company out of California called Curative Labs. And the issue has been that as they were using Curative Labs, eventually federal regulators issued a warning that Curative Labs had a propensity for some false results. So that caused concern by CDPHE. They reached out to the federal regulators, and the federal regulators said, you're using these beyond what their limited use authorization by our federal regulatory framework is appropriate. So they yanked back that after spending about $90 million on it. So that was one of the big concerns. The second one was there was an at-home testing program that was in use by another company, eMed, and the governor's office and eMed are in a protracted dispute with eMed saying you agreed to buy 53 million worth of these tests, and you have a very cumbersome delivery model that requires people to complete surveys and do a multi-day registration. And as a result, hardly any of them are getting used, and they're going to expire in a warehouse. And we think you still have to pay $53 million for those tests. So those are the two things that have kind of blown up, and the governor now is getting pushback from several elected officials who want him to fix some of these programs.
And Chris, if I could follow up with you on that really quickly, what are the fixes that are being asked for here, and how would they go about doing that?
Well, so eMed and the at-home testing program, which is still active, the issue, according to some of the people, is that in other states where eMed has been used, they really provided perhaps these tests at community centers, libraries, got them out the door quickly. And so what eMed is saying, you know, you need to perhaps think more creatively to get these out the door, as opposed to this survey process, which appears to be blocking people from understanding. I'm told the surveys are very confusing, and that the survey process doesn't work very well. And so that's why they're not being used. The state says we can't be blamed if those aren't popular tests. Don't hold us to account for it, and we don't think we're on the hook for the full $53 million.
Chris, thanks for coming on and sharing with that with us. If you want to see more of his reporting, you can log on to the Gazette and you can really see in depth that story. It's very, very good. I'd highly recommend it. But from the first floor, let's bump up one floor. Let's take the elevator up to the second floor that houses the legislature under the Gold Dome. And let's now bring on Colorado Politics Chief Legislative Reporter, Marianne Goodland. Now, Marianne, one of the big stories that you have been tracking this legislative session has been the public option bill, or should I say the artist formerly known as the public option bill. Now, that bill has advanced through the Senate and looks like it's on its way to the governor in the near future. Now that we're kind of nearing the conclusion of this, what are your big takeaways from that bill?
My big takeaways from that bill are that, as you said, it's not a public option anymore. It is now just another insurance plan that will be offered on the market in 3 years if the industry doesn't find a way to cut their costs by 15%, which is another big change. The other takeaway is the amount of political pressure that a lot of Democrats got to support this bill. And nowhere was this more obvious than in the state Senate. You heard people like Senator Roger Fields and Senator Joanne Janal, who chair the the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. They voted for the bill despite the fact that they have had nothing good to say about it. They don't like this bill. They don't think it's going to achieve what's been promised by the sponsors. yet they still voted for it. And I think one of the things that was the most telling was an amendment that Senator Fields ran on the Senate floor that had been provided to her by UC Health. That was going to kind of deal with the health equity issues that she is most concerned about. And she offered the amendment, and then she voted against it. And I think that really speaks to the pressure that she and Senator Janal and maybe some others were getting. In the end, the only Democrat to vote against this bill in the entire General Assembly was Senator Rachel Zenzinger, who we had heard was a hard no and wasn't going to change no matter what. So the bill is now done in the state Senate. They added a bunch of amendments that the House needs to take a look at, but Carrie Donovan, the sponsor of the bill, said that she believes the House is going to be fine with the amendments, and then we'll march off to the governor, and we'll see what happens after that.
Thanks, Marianne, for bringing us the latest on the Colorado option bill. And now Marianne's always on the cutting edge of the news. In terms of the cutting edge of the analysis, though, is Colorado Politics senior writer Joey Bunch. Joey, we're going to bring you in to wrap things up here. What can you tell us? What are you seeing here at the end of the session now?
Deja vu all over again. I expect the usual chaos. Every year we come to this point where we're dictated by the calendar and implied threat. We get to take it or leave it a lot faster when there's a wolf at the door and the session's ending in a few days. And that's what we've got again this year. I've seen it in every state I've worked in. When they say there are no coincidences in politics, this is what we're talking about. Friday's day 105, so we've got a little bit over 2 weeks left to go, and we've still got major pieces of legislation, that deserve thoughtful discussion, debate, and deliberation, not 2 weeks of rushing it through when the public and the press can't tell the public what's going on. I would love to think that, this is how the sausage is made, but I really think this is how the bologna sandwich is made. So, in a few more days, we can all say bon appetit and enjoy another bologna sandwich.
Well, Joey, in terms of eating bologna sandwiches, that's what Marianne and I have been doing as these legislative days stretch longer and longer. I believe 7 out of the last 8 days have gone at least until 11 p.m., something along those lines. So it really has been tough sledding as we approach the end of the session, but spot on in your analysis as always. For Joey, for Marianne, for Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we will see you next week.